that's the beauty of this archive. Actually, it very much tells the story of the period from the perspective of the government. And so it's often one of the things people say, oh, but you're not able to catch unproblematically the whole social network. I'm like, well, of course not, because, you know, it's been lost to time. But actually what this tells us is something very interesting about the construction of the network, the kinds of things that shaped it, the absences it necessarily has, and very much what the world looked like from the position of central government, and the kind of misinformation. So the things they have to intuit about those gaps, and the things they might have got wrong, and the assumptions they might have made about who was on whose side, and the feeling of double cross as well, that they thought someone was behaving in a certain way, and then a piece of information comes in that completely skews their perception of how that particular relationship is working. And I think that's part of the fun of this, is revealing the absences, and actually drawing more attention to them than perhaps happens in traditional scholarship, where you can kind of just leave things out. When you try to say you're collecting everything together, you have to draw attention to these absences, and I think that's quite a healthy thing to do, and it kind of points to the biases we get in a lot of traditional histories that perhaps are kind of slightly silenced.
So you can't fudge it in the way that people used to.
You can't fudge it, no.
Sorry, this is a bit a different thing that you probably are not really interested in, but you were mentioning sort of women's letters and men's letters in terms of kind of, would there be a case to look at sort of them in sort of a network analysis, whether they have sort of behaved differently, or
whether women behave differently?
Yeah.
So we've got a slightly weird situation here, in that women are only included in the network if they wrote to someone in central government, or personal, like family archives were folded in. And that happens in quite a lot of cases, because essentially this is an archive that's composed by letters written to government, copies of letters sent out by government, intercepted letters, and archives that were seized. And then, and essentially the whole nub of this is the personal archive of the Secretaries of State. And so you get all of these kind of biases, and one of the fact is that we only have women if they've written to someone in government, or it's the family archive. So we only have 4% of the network that are women. So it's quite difficult to tell. But what we're interested in seeing is whether they connect more than you might expect than at random. So that's something we're hoping to look at in the next few months. We're very interested to see what kind of function women are playing. And which is one of the things I noticed in a cursory way when I was looking through women's correspondence is the frequency with which they talk about sending gifts, more so than average in other letters. They're always sending bits of meat with their letters, or a brace of wild pheasant, or cramp rings. Lady Lyle, she loves cramp rings. They're meant to, if you wear it, it's meant to get rid of cramps and ailments. And so these kinds of little tokens are sent, and just how women negotiated social interactions in perhaps a different way, like through gift giving. And I mean, that's work that I know lots of scholars have done very nice work on, but just being able to kind of quantify that might be really helpful.
I'm sorry, can I ask one thing again? Because I was thinking, so it's actually really intriguing what you're teasing out there in terms of like, how do people communicate, the spies, the merchants, and all of that. So, and I'm thinking, I mean, again, because you started with the NSA, it sounds almost like, people who work for the NSA, because you're contributing to this network analysis, seeing these patterns. And so if this is not something that, people would be interested in, also in applying to sort of contemporary sort of networks and so on. I mean, of course, it's historical, but I'm just thinking that if people wouldn't be interested in kind of, because you draw kind of larger conclusions about how certain people behave. So I'm just wondering to what extent, I'm not saying, have you talked to the NSA, that's not what I mean, but I'm just thinking, do you think it would be sort of applicable to sort of also more contemporary networks or so on, or do you think this is sort of quite unique and more
I mean, potentially. I mean, I think we're finding patterns that we might expect, the kind of the scale-free distribution where you have that very small percentage of people making many connections, the way you have people bridging different communities. But I don't know what we're going to find with women. In my previous work, I found, I did some work on a small Protestant letter network where I found that women played this very crucial role in holding the network together. So they weren't central organisers, but they often did things like providing money or goods to support leaders. And what we found was they had very high betweenness. So when you got rid of them, or just get rid of them, the network would fall apart. What actually happened during that reign was that all the leaders were killed, but it was these figures, these sustained figures, and many women who were holding the network together, so it didn't completely fragment. And there was a recent finding that in terrorist networks, women play a similar role, but they create that kind of cohesiveness between different parts of. So, I mean, I think there are analogies to be made. Whether our methods are as advanced as those, we don't know what the NSA is doing exactly. Maybe they've got some tools that I might like to borrow.
Did wonder when you're talking about the missing bits. I mean, that's the bane of all historical networks, is the fact that there are missing nodes that can never be recreated, no matter how hard we try. I was wondering, have you looked at other archive metadata sources, catalog records? How easily would it be to sort of, posthumously fold in other archives just to get a wider sense of the network that perhaps the Crown did not care about?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, it's beyond the remit of this specific project, but it's part of a wider network that I'm part of. So, don't know if anyone's heard of Reassembling the Republic of Letters, which is being kind of led out of Oxford by Howard Hodson, and then with Thomas Falnig is involved. And so they're bringing together people from, I think, 38 different European countries who work on letters and the Republic of Letters to think about protocols for how to record metadata, how to disambiguate names, how to disambiguate places, so that essentially we can kind of future-proof our data by using the same protocols, by coming up with unique IDs, so you can produce linked data and link from one archive to another because your person has the same ID number. So what we did when we disambiguated the people in our data was to link them to their Wikidata code, the ODMB, the History of Parliament online, so that you can seamlessly move between those different resources. And so hopefully other people will begin. Oh, and VIAF, the virtual
International Authority File.
Yeah, that's right. So that that you can move between these different archives, and so ideally we can then just match up these different archives and have the stuff on William Sterrell that's currently in Vienna, so we can see that perspective and what the perspective of him looks like from Vienna, and just fold these all in. That's the dream, right? That we could take our archives out of their silos and have them kind of matched up. So there are efforts. I don't know what it's going to look like, but we're sharing the protocols, and so hopefully that will be really nice, because that would really change. And then you can come towards a position where you're able to more accurately describe the social, not the social network, but the correspondence network of that era.
If anyone else has got a question, I won't jump in, but did you mention that it took 18 months to clean the data?
Yeah. 9 months of it was full time. Like 9 months is what I was teaching, so I was only getting a few hours a week. But yeah, I generally got through roughly 120 people a day. And so we developed a little tool, but we did it. So I think it's called a Recon, that's been developed in collaboration with Reassembling the Republic of Letters, which is meant to slightly automate this process. But I'm very nervous about over-automating something like this, where there are often people living at the same time with the same name in similar jobs, and I just wanted to keep a bit more control over it. And often I was getting down to the detail of the manuscript to compare handwriting. So there were two Pearsons who were both they were family members with the same name, who were also captains at the same time, working out which was the junior, which was the senior, and things like that. And then sometimes there'll be people in the archive that sort themselves out much more quickly, and you'll kind of whiz through them. And then there's people like John Smith that you spend 2 days cleaning, because there are many of the John Smiths. And some of these are the people who only send one letter and you're working out how long do I spend on a person who sends one letter, you know, well, not very long, but these people who are involved in these complex negotiations, you know they're potentially going to be very important later. You really want to make sure that you don't add a false positive, because it's almost more dangerous to falsely collapse someone than have someone who's the same person separate, because over-connecting a network could lead to some really damaging conclusions, whereas under-connecting it, probably less so, I think.
And did you know before you started that it was likely to take as long as it did?
I think I knew it would take that long. No, I knew it would take long, but not that long. And a couple of months in, I worked out how long it would take. And actually, I only finished 2 weeks behind schedule once I'd worked out what my speed was. Normally, because I had an aim per day, and yeah, you can't really do it for more than 8 hours a day. It's quite, yeah, it's quite maddening. And you need enough attention that you can't listen to podcasts, but yeah. But it's a little bit numbing sometimes. Yeah.
Any final questions for Ruth? Well, in that case, I would like to thank you again for a wonderful paper, and we hope to hear more about your project as it evolves and you start putting more conclusions up for us.
Thank you very much.